Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we ended up doing a few more fights against Chaos, and we'll just keep going with that until that's finished.
Inquisitor, this planet has been under quarantine for the past 2 centuries, since a necro-plague decimated the whole population. I recommend you make haste.
Splendid news, Magos, as always. The Emperor and the pro-sanguine Emperor protects.
So there hasn't been much for 40K news lately. I mean, the only new thing was the height of the Hearthkin got released, so squat height. And they're dwarves. In their armor, they're 4 feet tall, compared to a Space Marine being 7 to 8, so 1.4 meters to 2.2 meters for any non-American members out there. But that's about it for them. Haven't heard anything new. There was a release of like a couple miniatures, just the pictures of Hearthkin, and I don't think it's worth mentioning just because, or at least dedicating a video to, because it's just like, hey, they're effectively the painted pictures we've seen, but they're now plastic miniatures. You know, there's nothing brand new that I'm like, oh man, this needs to be shown. It's all pretty self-explanatory. It's what you'd expect. So, with that in mind, I figured let's do a bit of lore. And what better lore than Karn the Betrayer? If the name sounds familiar, but you can't quite put your finger on where you've heard it, he is... yeah, he still is. I mean, he did earn the title Betrayer, but he is a member of the World Eaters, Chaos Space Marine Legion, and his history stretches all the way back to before even the Horus Heresy. Because at the time, he was actually born on Terra and was trained and served within the Warhounds, which is World Eaters before they became the World Eaters. Then, Angron was found, their Primarch, and, I mean, the guy's name is literally Angry. But he changed it to World Eaters. They became, I believe it's the 8th Legion. Actually, I can check quick.
At your command.
Oh, the 12th Legion? Huh. And who's the 8th? Whatever. The 12th Legion. This is why I sometimes have to double check things, even live, just because I try to be right on it. But they became the World Eaters. The Horus Heresy happens. They ended up... God, the World Eaters, I get it, they're Khorne worshippers, but God, they are just dicks. They ended up invading Prospero to prevent the Wolf Sigil, which was given by Horus to Magnus, prevent that from ever being used again. After Magnus used it once to be like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be trying to rebel. But they did that. They also wanted these mind healing devices, which they ended up capturing a Thousand Sons captain and interrogated him, and he flat out was like, look, we don't have those anymore, they're all destroyed. You know, I can help you guys, though. And he specifically said to Karn, like, I can help deal with your guilt and all that you have inside and treat that. And Karn just went, nah, and killed him. Because, you know, maybe some other members would have appreciated that, but, you know, Karn's an ass. But so, the Horus Heresy happens, and Karn is a horrible guy. Even barring the whole, hey, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne kind of deal, there was a siege. I actually have to look it up because it's a very specific conflict that happens. Actually, even before the conflict, now that I'm thinking about it, there is one thing I have to note. A few things, actually. Karn is the second strongest of the World Eaters, behind Angron, which is impressive considering Angron becomes a demon primarch. So if you're the second strongest dude, and your strongest dude is a literal jacked as hell demon prince, you're pretty strong. Yeah, you're a beefy boy. And even though Karn has immense just rage and essentially psychopathy, what's interesting is he was the reasonable one between him and Angron. When Angron finally showed up and was like, hey, yo, I'm your Primarch, he liked Karn, and Karn served as his, conscience. Which is also a horrifying concept, considering you have a madman whose conscience is just another madman. But of course, at the time, Karn was a bit more reasonable when Angron had shown up. This is before he just kind of snapped. But then, through the Horus Heresy, he does abominable things, it's chaos, typical song and dance there. He ends up going to the Eye of Terror with everybody else because, you don't really have anywhere else to go at that point. Participates in the Siege of Terra. There was the Battle of Scalathrax. That's the one I was thinking of. Scalathrax is the reason it took a really long time for the World Eaters to return in full form, because this was a fight against the Emperor's children. Now, Karn decided, hey, I'm gonna push our guys to, win. He wants them to go out and fight because they were losing. They didn't have the manpower. So what Karn did was he grabbed a flamer and just started using it against allies to try to flush them out of cover and to drive them towards the enemy. As a result, some of the guys were trying to shoot him back, and they were all killed in the process. And the Battle of Scalathrax was lost. Horribly. To the point where he did so much damage to the World Eaters that they just didn't have Legion strength or unity until the First War of Armageddon. And it took Angron a lot of effort to actually unify them. Because between Scalathrax and the First War of Armageddon, they had just dissolved into tiny war bands. Karn had earned the title Betrayer for obvious reasons, and while you'd think that was kind of the end of his story, he actually, escaped and kept going. He ended up becoming, and still is, a mercenary. That's effectively how he ended up getting involved in the 13th Black Crusade, was he got hired to do some fights, and of course he's not going to pass up killing people. So it was a very interesting situation, but that is the ultra-fast version of Karn. There's other bits that can be brought up, but that kind of covers why he became the Betrayer in kind of origin to now, without wasting time detailing tons of battles or details that are just superfluous. I can never pronounce it right. Unnecessary. But in general, the World Eaters are an interesting group. And Angron, actually, we haven't had a good miniature for him. We've had some good Karn ones as of late. But Angron in Demon Prince form, we haven't had since, I think, Epic? If you remember that specialist game. Which, I mean, the easiest way to describe Epic is just what happens when you shrink down everything so you can have more vehicles and they don't cost you an arm and a leg. The idea's there, though. I like it. I think it's a cool concept. I see why it stopped being a thing, though. But, Angron. Honestly, I wish we'd get more Primarchs. I think Primarch miniatures would be cool. Also, just kind of an update as to who's even alive at this point. Oh, actually, I did see some discussion on... Because suddenly everybody's caring about World Eaters, actually. Why now, I'm not sure, but there was discussion on what vehicles people wanted to see come back, and like, the Brass Scorpion. Because all we have is the greater Brass Scorpion, people want like a smaller version. Which, yeah. There's the question of how does it fare compared to Dreadnoughts? Because, you know, if it's too small, then it's probably not going to be worth a whole lot in terms of utility or anything, really. I mean, its biggest advantage would be over a Dreadnought probably getting a Demon Engine tag. But short of that and any synergies you can come up with, I feel like a Dreadnought is still a better option.
I have reached the underground entrance.
Hey, I'm gonna wipe out all these guys that are here, because they're right in the way. But it is an interesting idea. A lot of people were pointing out they don't have like a low tier infantry. They don't have a... I'm trying to think of the way to describe it. Not a tar pit, but effectively a tar pit. You know, Death Guard and all the Nurgly boys have Poxwalkers and Plague Zombies and all that. But, you know, World Eaters and what I realized is essentially everyone else doesn't really have a trash infantry to just eat shots. Some people argue, oh, well, Thousand Sons have Zangors. I'm like, kinda, but when's the last time you saw a Zangor set? I mean, if we're gonna bring back Gors, I want a full Beastmen conversion kit. Since within lore they're actually used by the Empire. They're essentially segregated into mutant divisions, but they do exist. Quick sell off all our junk. Eh, we'll sell it. Shield drain, I don't even know what that does.
Inquisitor, be careful down there. The Hydra is a slippery, treacherous beast. If we don't act fast, it will recover. We must cut off its last head. Kill the leader of the traitors. No rest. No forgiveness. Glory to the Emperor.
Oh, going with like garbage tier stuff for armies I was thinking it'd be cool to actually introduce more of cultists. Because we're starting to get more, or at least even just re-releases of like chaos versions of Imperial Guard. And I'm all for that. But at the same time, it doesn't, like, it fits, but it also doesn't fully fit, but I think that's a lack of rules in groups like Thousand Suns. Because they would have a group of Psychers, most likely. And I feel like you almost need to have separate rule sets depending on like the chaos force that they're meant to represent. Like an Iron Warriors cultist group is not going to be... I wouldn't say they're going to be as melee-centric, but they're going to have more... maybe fortifications and constructs. They're definitely going to be different than everybody, really. The only group that I think works fine as is would be Chaos dedicated to Chaos United or Cultists fighting for Black Legion. Because Black Legion being so much of a catch-all, you don't need to make much unique for them. And in reality, anything you make for any other group kind of becomes something for Black Legion one way or another. Or one thing, because going back to like people wanting the Brass Scorpion, one thing I thought would be cool to see come back is like the Death Wheel. Which, if you don't remember the Death Wheel, once again, I believe it was an Epic, so it was a specialist game thing. But if you've played any Warhammer Fantasy and dealt with a Doom Wheel, you've seen a Death Wheel. Because that's literally all it is. It is a giant spiked wheel that drives around and can shoot its spikes out. Goofy as all can get out, I will 100% admit, but it's kind of cool. It's one of those things that I get why it doesn't come back. It's kind of dumb, but I do miss it. Or I was just thinking about Lord of Skulls. If you remember those, they're effectively like... they're a demon engine, but you take the treads of a tank, and then you have the spirit of a bloodthirster put into the upper half of a gigantic suit of Space Marine armor, effectively. Plop that on top of the treads, give it almost like Titan scale guns or giant cleavers, and have it all powered by a boiling blood generator. Or I give it a skull cannon. And that's it. And they're cool. I don't even know if people use them in tabletop. I don't think anybody cares enough. Or it might just be they're expensive. Because I remember looking at those and I was like, this is cool. I saw the price tag and I'm like, this is no longer cool. I feel like that, the more I like stop and think about it, I think that's part of the reason some of these things just, you don't see them very often. Obviously, yeah, price, but also it results in weird balancing because there's not enough people using them and theory crafting with them to fully say, is this actually balanced, or is it just kind of slipping into a strategic blind spot? And I feel like that might actually be it, is it's more of a blind spot than an actual, in some cases, imbalance. Man, I wish this game would add, like, proper chaos spawn for each chaos god. It's a minor thing, but it really helps flesh them out. I remember that in Chaos Bane, actually. If you haven't seen that series I've done, check it out. But Chaos Bane was... like, there's a lot of flaws in Chaos Bane. I will 100% admit that. I mean, there are flaws in all these games. But I feel like they did a pretty good job on representing each type of chaos. You know, they definitely did their homework, and I can appreciate that. Oh, I don't remember if I talked about it before. I don't think I did, but it was for... I want to say... the Chaos Gate Demon Hunters game, the Grey Knight one. There was an article... yeah, I don't think I talked about it. There's an article online where they're like, oh, the devs went to the Warhammer Museum, which I'm like, you mean Warhammer World? And then just the fact that they made an article about that, and all I could think was, that's the bare minimum, my guy. It's just, I swear I'm repeating myself. I might have talked about it. Either way, still worth bringing up even again. That's the goofiest thing. When doing proper research is seen as some exceptional thing for a company. Drives me crazy. Because it's like, yeah, I expect you to do research and properly do this. Oh my god, it just reminded me. I was watching a guy play through it since it's PC only, and I was butthurt over that. But I was watching a playthrough. I'm like, let's see how this game is. Because, you know, sometimes these games, they come out and they're hyped, but they end up being kind of meh. How I've felt about watching the playthrough, it's not a bad game, but it's not phenomenal. But I think that's just the problem of you only fight Nurgle and Death Guard, and that gets real boring real fast. It's like I can only see a Plague Marine so many times before any, like, excitement just withers away. But the guy I was watching, it's the problem I have when it comes to people who don't know anything about 40K. You know, I had mentioned it before when talking about Hired Gun. How you'll get people who are just like, yeah, I don't really care. And it is just kind of annoying because then the whole weight of everything and the interest of stuff, it withers away. Because then it's like, well, you don't understand why. And that's exactly what happened with the Chaos Gate playthrough. The guy I'm watching, they contact Kaldor Drago. And the guy's just like, oh, cool. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Kaldor Drago is the one good part about Grey Knights. The dude is essentially forced into a quantum leap situation where he's trapped in the warp only to jump out occasionally to beat ass and leave. He is the most hardcore pipe-hitting dude in the Grey Knights. He's so hardcore when his Supreme Grandmaster, his predecessor, died at the hands of Mortarion. He went into a rage, used Mortarion's true name, which was made by the Emperor, to shatter his mortal form, or his physical form, and then carve the name of his predecessor into Mortarion's heart. That man is the coolest damn part of the Grey Knights. And it just feels like disrespect to be like, oh, okay, that's a guy. And then there's a fight against Mortarion. Spoilers if you happen to have not played it or are watching, but with all the Death Guard, it's kind of obvious what's going on. But there's a boss fight against Mortarion. What's the guy I'm watching do? He just goes, oh, big guy. I'm just sitting here like, are you shitting me? You can at least try. I'll admit, this is my problem when it comes to people who build a channel off of like a type of game. You know, oh, I play XCOM style games. Instead of, you know, playing what you enjoy, because what you enjoy you actually care about. Seeing Mortarion, the damn Primarch of the Death Guard, and just being like, oh, big guy, okay. It's like, dude, this is actually in lore, this is significant. This is the equivalent of Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader. Or Obi-Wan when he just beats the hell out of Darth Maul and cuts him in half. It's a significant thing. Or when you see Darth Maul at the end of Solo. It's a thing where you're like, oh damn. You get kind of hyped because this is a big deal. Instead of just, you know, oh, big guy. Ah, my god, it bugs me so much. And it shouldn't. I'll be honest, it shouldn't bug me. It's such a minor thing. It's not like it's gonna ruin my day. But it's just... people should care, is all I'm saying. People should care, and people should, you know, look at this stuff, and if you're gonna do a playthrough of it, know what you're talking about, know what's going on. You know, you don't have to have full-on autobiographical knowledge of every character and be able to tell you, like, what the Emperor's inseam is. You know, useless stuff like that isn't going to help. But know the big names. Even if you don't know the exact Primarch, know what a Primarch is. Know what and who Nurgle is.
The Conclave has sent you a message.
I have received word.
Yay. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.